If you have a service, a story, or a product that can help people, and it is on your heart to share that with people and use it to impact people, to help people, and not just impact other people, but also impact your life and build a business for you and your family, then it's your responsibility to be seen. Because if you're not being seen and putting yourself out there and allowing those people that could hire you or learn from you or follow you and be inspired by you, then they're going to go follow someone else. They're going to go pay someone else. They're going to go listen to someone else that's not as good as you, doesn't care as much as you, simply because that person is over themselves and can put themselves out there and isn't hiding. And that's a shame. It's your responsibility really to be seen. It's not about you.
Welcome back to the show, Jen Gottlieb. She is a super connector, world-renowned motivational speaker, content creator, podcast host, and thought leader. Jen Gottlieb is the co-founder and chief mindset officer for acclaimed PR company, Super Connector Media. She now welcomes her new book, Be Seen, Find Your Voice, Build Your Brand, Live Your Dream. All right, I am welcoming back on the show Jen Gottlieb. I am just so honored to share this space with you again on the show. And as we were talking about before we press record, I had her on the show the end of last year, and we released the episode earlier on the year, and we talked mostly on how to get to our goals faster, how to develop this unstoppable mindset, and really what gets in our way. And we went deep into that, but we didn't talk about what I'm so excited to go deep into, and that is her newest book, which I'm going to show here. I have an early advance copy, and I saw this cover early on, and I was so honored that you shared it with me because, number one, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's definitely an attention grabber. And I started to dig into this book, her new book, Be Seen, Find Your Voice, Build Your Brand, and Live Your Dream. This is gold. This book, as I was telling Jen, I have really enjoyed what I've read through so far, that she comes through on the pages. And it's like she's talking to her best friend. You know, it's really like a relatable, like, here's my story and this is how I could help you walk through it too, because I was there. And I think those are the type of books that anybody truly wants to read, because we feel connected to it and we can understand, oh, okay, somebody that has been through the same thing I'm experiencing now is on the other side, and I can learn a shit ton from. And that's what I really think this book is. So first, I just want to congratulate you. I know this book, when this episode releases, the book will be available for purchase. So of course, everybody, Be Seen will be in the show notes to grab it immediately. But I just want to give you a massive congratulations, because I know a book is a big, big deal.
Thank you so much, friend. It means everything to me. It's such a cool moment to be back here with you. After I remember like our first interview, and I got off and I was like, that was such a powerful interview. That was so much fun. I feel like we just really connected. And then to be here now with the book out, and your podcast is crushing it, and it's just like a new like 2.0 version of both of us. I think it's so fun. So everyone that's listening, I think it might be absolutely like really cool if everyone went and listened to the other one too that we did together, to see the growth and the transformation. I love doing that. And I love that's like part of what you just said about my book. Like, I just open up the pages of my life and share my stories, because I love to see where other people came from, and I love to see the growth and the trajectory, because it reminds me that everybody started somewhere. And so I think it could be cool for your listeners to go back and listen to who we were a year ago versus who we are now, just to see what can happen in such a short amount of time. And that always gives me hope when I listen back. Like, I'll go find some of like my favorite authors or my favorite podcast hosts or my favorite influencers and back scroll like years to see their original stuff and to see all of like the growth and the transformation. And I'm like, oh, like so much can change in such a short amount of time. And it's just so powerful. So I love these moments where we get to reconnect and be like, I don't know, kind of like a 2.0 version of ourselves than we were last time.
Absolutely. I love that too. And actually, what I think is also great when you get to revisit like maybe a year ago or 6 months or whatever it may be, you also get to see how somebody has evolved. Because I think a lot of people think about like we are this one thing, we're this one identity. But the great thing, especially when you're building, which I'm sure you could touch on a lot about this, is when you're building a personal brand, you are able to shape shift into a new identity, because that's really what we should be doing, is growing and evolving. And I think that it's like rediscovering parts of us that maybe we didn't know yet, that we are, able to birth new in us by discovering more parts of us. And so actually touching on that, because this is what I think. So her book is called Be Seen, which a lot of people know. Anybody that knows Jen Gottlieb, she knows that she's obviously very present on social media. She shows up every day on her lives, and she shows and exudes much confidence. And I know that wasn't built overnight. But the one thing that people know you for is media. You talk about social media, building your brand, finding your voice, which that's what your book is about. But it goes much deeper than that. And that's what I love that you touch on, is, of course, early in the book, is really about how to find the real you. And I think so many of us are disconnected from who we truly are. I know that is very much my experience. And that's why I talk about authenticity so much, because my journey, which I talk about relating to somebody's story. When you shared your story, and I think we touched on it in our previous episode, which of course that will be in the show notes, but you share in your story that your journey in acting, and then also getting this role on hosting a heavy metal TV show and whatnot. And you really felt disconnected from who you truly were. Like you weren't that, but you put on this persona, like, this is the way I get this role. I have to show up as this, to be seen as this, accepted as this. And I just so truly relate to that story. And I think a lot of people can, is how often we pretend to be something we're not, so we could be validated, accepted enough, get this role, feel this position or whatnot. So I would love if you could kind of touch on that story and how you discovered that you weren't living as the real Jen and being authentically aligned to who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have to go back to when I got this job on this show. I was an actress. That's why I moved to New York City. I dropped out of college. I was in musical theater school, or I was a musical theater major in college at the University of Hartford, and I was like, I need to move to New York City and pursue my dream. I'm dropping out of college, and I moved to New York, and I studied musical theater specifically at a school in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is right down the street from where I live now, actually. And I end up booking my dream role in a Broadway national tour. And that dream role is very ironic, because it's not your typical dream role that people like go off and they're like, oh, I really want to play Linda in The Wedding Singer. The Wedding Singer, the Adam Sandler movie. So, Drew Barrymore, Adam Sandler, that comedy. So they turned it into a Broadway musical. And I wanted to play the bitch that leaves Robbie Hart at the altar. It was like the part that I just like, I resonate with that. I want to be the bad girl. I want to be this comedic role. And I end up booking this job, and I travel the world. It was not international. It was actually national. So it wasn't the world. I'm exaggerating. It was the country, but it felt like the world, on a bus playing this role. And when I got back from the tour, the role that I played, Linda, was like this rocker chick. And it was a character that I played. And there was this audition for this heavy metal talk show called That Metal Show. And it was a VH1 show. So it was a real show. And I look at this casting and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just played this character like all year. I could totally play this part. And as a good little actress, I went and I auditioned for this show all about heavy metal music, even though, Erica, I hate heavy metal music. I've never liked it. I know nothing about it. I still know nothing about it. And I did this for a very long time. But I wanted to get this job. I was an actress. So the night before the audition, I studied everything I could possibly learn about metal. Like, I'm going to know all the bands. I'm going to memorize all this. And I Google, I do all my research. I show up at the audition, and there's, at least 50 other girls in the room at this audition, and they're all legitimate metal girls. Like, they've got like real leg tattoos and like real metal shirts. And my metal shirt is from like Bloomingdale's. It's like a fake, and it's clearly I am not where I'm supposed to be in this moment. I'm like, okay, but I can still do this. I can totally morph and pretend to be one of these girls. So I go into the audition dressed up in my fake metal outfit, and they ask me all these questions, and I pretty much bomb. Like, I forget all of the bands that I memorized. Because it wasn't who I was. I was lying. I was pretending, and I didn't believe it myself. So it wasn't like I was memorizing lines as an actress. I was pretending to be a version of Jen that I wasn't. And I forgot everything. I totally shit the bed at this audition. And then at the end of the audition, they look at my resume, and at the bottom of my resume, it actually says that I do a great Britney Spears impersonation, because that's like, and I forgot it was there. That's something that I do, and it's funny, and that's real Jen. Like, I like Britney Spears. That's the type of person that I am. And they read that, they're like, Jen, so you do a Britney Spears impersonation? And I'm like, oh my god, this is going down the wrong path. Like, I've already bombed this. So I immediately just stop trying to be heavy metal girl, and I tap into me. And I'm like, screw it. I already, sure. Yes, I do Britney Spears. Like, okay, here I am. Hi. Like, I was pretending. I didn't say that, but it pretty much was like, that's what was happening. And they're like, will you do Britney for us? And I sing like Britney Spears. The whole room laughs hysterically. They're loving it. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but I definitely didn't get that part. And I leave. And a week later, the producer calls me and he's like, listen, we want to have you on the show. We want you to be in this show. You got it. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're Britney Spears. Like, it was so funny. And everyone could see themselves hanging out with you on set. And we really enjoyed you. And we saw a lot of girls, but we want you to have the part. And I was like, holy crap. So this was a very important moment. And I don't tell this story often, Erica. This is in the book, but I haven't been telling it a lot publicly until I realized this really massive connection here, because I realized in that moment that being real Jen was the thing that was going to get me the opportunities. Truly connecting and not trying to be somebody I wasn't, and being myself was going to let people in and make people attracted to me, and connect me to people on a real level, not being the fake version of myself. And I learned that lesson there, but I forgot it when I got the job, because I got this job and I immediately thought, okay, I got it. Now I really got to become Metal Girl. And for
Mm.
5 years, I showed up for work every day wearing a costume that wasn't like me, pretending I liked heavy metal music, building a brand that was inauthentic to who I truly was, telling a lie. If you Google me, listeners, back in the day on that metal show, you will see that I look completely different. I was bleaching my hair. I was wearing all these metal shirts. I was pretending that I really enjoyed something that I didn't, and I was living a lie. And we talked about being authentic, unbelievably inauthentic, like oozing inauthenticity. And I could feel it. This is the problem when you're inauthentic, on some level. But I was so deep in this need for people to approve of me or like me or give me the job again the next season or share my stuff on social media or tell me that I look, sexy or whatever we're addicted to when we're in that world, that I was too petrified to let go of it and find out who real Jen is. And I slipped down a really, really, really dark path during that time, because I was in this internal argument with my real self. Like,
Mhm.
deep down, I was like, this isn't you. This isn't you. You're lying. This is not you. There's something more for you. But then this other side of me was like, no, this is a job. Go. This is how this is what you got, the game you got to play. And it was like I was fighting with myself. And I was in a toxic relationship. I was severely bulimic. I was totally lost, completely depressed. And I believe that when you're out of alignment like that and you can't get yourself back into alignment, like, you can't do it on your own, the universe will step in, it'll do it for you. And
Yeah.
a lot of the times it'll hurt when that happens. And a lot of the times that breakdown needs to happen. Some shit needs to happen for a shift to happen. And so the show got canceled. And who the hell was I when the show was canceled?
Right.
Show got canceled. The guy that I was with left me for my friend, actually, one of our friends. And at that time, I was down such a dark path that I had spent the majority of my money. So I had no boyfriend, I had no real money, no job, no connections, didn't know who I was anymore, and I had to start over, and I had to figure it out. And Eric, I really wish that I could tell you that, like, in that moment, I figured it out. Like, I was like,
Right.
okay, here we go. No, it got worse before it got better. And I slipped down a really, really dark path. So much so that my mom had to come into the city and take care of me. And this, I'll tell you this story really quick, because I don't think I've told you this before, but it's actually really interesting how the dots connect. She took
Yeah.
me to this Italian restaurant one night, and I'm crying hysterically, and like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I just feel, and I am not into personal development at this time. At this time, I was not into any kind of personal development stuff. My mom was, though. my mom is a Reiki master and she's into spirituality and she's into personal development. And we're sitting at this table and I'm crying and she takes this book out of her purse and she slides it across the table, like real stealth, like careful, because she knows I'm going to be like, Mom, what are you talking about? I'm not going to read that book. The book is called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And it's a book full of affirmations to heal whatever part of your life that you need healing. And my mom is very smart. She knew I wasn't going to read the book. So she photocopied one of the affirmations in this book that she wanted me to read. And I opened the book and there's this photocopy. I'm like, Mom, my mom knows me. And on the back of the photocopy, it says, Jenny, I hope you find yourself again. And I look at this thing and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to read this book. I'm like, I'm not going to read this stupid book. I will read this dumb affirmation every day. That's all I'm going to do. I'll put it on my refrigerator and I promise myself I will read this affirmation every day. And I don't know if it was the affirmation or if it was the act of sticking to that commitment of reading the affirmation every day, that commitment that I set to myself, having that discipline to be able to do the thing that I said that I was going to do every day. But I slowly but surely started to get outside my house, go and take action on things I was scared to do, get my butt to Barnes and Noble. Before I know it, I'm sitting on the floor for hours reading every personal development book under the sun. Before I
Wow.
know it, I'm meeting the love of my life and building my business and taking action and helping people and being seen. But it was not overnight. It was slowly but surely. But that affirmation was one of those things. And skip to now with the book. I wrote this book and we pitched a lot of publishers. I wanted it to be traditionally published, which it is. And the last publisher meeting that we had was with a publisher called Hay House. The author of You Can Heal Your Life is named Louise Hay. And before she died, she started one of the biggest personal development publishing houses in the world called Hay House. And I got on this meeting with these publishers. And all of a sudden, this story of this affirmation comes back to my mind. And I start telling this story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Louise Hay changed my life.
It's so
Because she
beautiful.
was seen, because she put this quote, these affirmations out into the world, because she was visible enough. She made herself seen so my mom could find her, and my mom could read the book, and my mom could give it to me, and I could use it. And because of that, now, of course, Louise Hay is actually bringing my book Be Seen out into the world, which is
Oh,
wild. And I tell that
so
story
good.
right off the bat just to remind people that the dots always connect when you look backwards.
Mm, I love it. I love all the stories you just shared. So just to touch on some of that. So what is so beautiful about your story of discovering your misalignment and knowing something was off, but yet again, still like focused on your career and what you were doing. But what is so key there is when things don't, like there's this resistance when we're out of alignment with who we truly are. And I think a lot of people experience that, but it's noted, like how can we become more aware of this misalignment and then taking these new steps, these new little daily steps towards becoming the real you. And like one thing I know is so strong is our attachment to our identity, like how we see ourselves. And so we'll always stay where we see ourselves. And the only way we could shift out of that is creating a new identity for ourselves. So how do you recommend we start to gain more clarity of who we truly are and then really start to shift into that with letting go or like dying off those masks that we, always wear to show up this certain way to be accepted or whatnot? Like how could we start to really shift into that? Because I know you talk about the little steps and you started to take little actions. What would you recommend if somebody is feeling they have to create this new identity?
Of course. So the first part of the book is called Be Courageous, and the second part of the book is called Be Creative. And be creative not in like creating your messaging and all that stuff, which is great, but being creative and creating the person that you want to become. So in order to create the person that you want to become, what I like to call you 2.0, you have to understand who you truly are, because you 2.0 cannot be created without the real you. And in the book, I refer to her as real Jen, and I lost real Jen. And real Jen, when I think of real Jen and like who she really is, and I want everybody that's listening to kind of think about who like the real you is, I always think back to when I was a little girl and when I was like 6, and I was so unapologetic of who I was, and I wanted to sing and dance in front of everybody, and I just wanted to be Annie or the Little Mermaid or Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and I wanted everyone to know it, and I didn't care if my belly was hanging out, I didn't care if my hair was a mess, I didn't care what anyone thought of me, and I just wanted to do what I love to do. And that when I think back to that moment, I was the freest. I would ask for hugs. I would cry for what I wanted. I would be unapologetic in my needs and my desires and my desire to tell someone how I felt about them. And I feel that many of us, maybe not all of us, maybe I would be wrong to say that everyone, but most, when you think back to a child or yourself as a child, usually we are the most authentic versions of ourselves because nothing has really come in the way yet to condition us to be different. Nothing's really said like, "Oh, you shouldn't be that way. You should sit a certain way. You should speak a certain way. You should, act a certain way." Or we haven't been punished yet for, like speaking our truth. We haven't been exiled from the cool kids yet for being different.
Right.
And over time, that's what happens. So whenever I'm feeling disconnected from real Jen, which still happens, sometimes I will like get really, well, who is this girl? She is not. Let's remember who you are. I'll go for a wonder walk, and I talk about wonder walks a little bit in the book, but a lot in my content. They're my favorite things to do, and I like that you said action because I like to walk and move my body and tap into real Jen or tap into future Jen when I go on these long walks. So one of the ways that I do this is it's in the book in part one called "Setting the Scene," and it's an acronym. So you're going to sense, you're going to embody, and you're going to like just embrace and then navigate the world as that person. So I will go on a walk and listen to a song that I loved when I was a little girl. And I don't know, I am not a mental health expert. I am not a therapist. I'm not anything like that, nor do I know like and if there was science behind this, but I started doing it, it worked for me. So if you feel like this might work for you, it works for me and I highly recommend you try it. I will literally go for a walk and put on Under the Sea, the Little Mermaid
Oh
song,
my
or like It's a Hard Knock Life from Annie and walk and listen to it. And just all of a sudden, because I'm sensing, I'm hearing those songs, it can bring me right back to that memory of me
God.
doing like somersaults and cartwheels in my living room and my dad videoing me and me being like, look at me. And I'm hearing the song and I'm tapping, oh my God, that's real Jen. And then I start to feel her and then I start to embody her. And then I start to remember what it feels like to be her. And then I start to navigate the world and just go for a walk as real Jen and think about the things that I'm struggling with in that moment and how real Jenny would deal with it. And whenever I tap back into her and really feel what it feels like to be her and ask her what her truth would be in this moment, it always gets me back into alignment. And it also helps me to tap back into self-love because I couldn't possibly hate that little girl. Whenever
Yeah.
I'm nasty to myself and I think about myself as like, "Oh my god, that little girl that would like do somersaults and cartwheels in the living room like all day, every day and like just want to sing and dance." Like she, anything that I'm saying mean about myself in that moment doesn't matter because I would never say those things to her. And meeting her and being with her and connecting to her always helps me. So maybe for you, go back to a memory or a moment where you felt in the pocket. And I talk about being in the pocket in the book, like feeling in flow. Like maybe you were cooking with your grandma. Maybe you were, it was a moment where you were with your best friend as a little kid, just at a dance recital, singing and dancing on stage or something like that. And you just felt so in the pocket and so joyful. Go back to that moment and tap back into that little person and really experience that and feel it in your body and understand that that feeling that's probably as close as you're going to get to the most authentic version of you. And you won't I don't stay there all the time, but whenever I can tap back in and remind myself that she's there, it helps me so much to find her when I need her.
And I know you use this process yourself before getting on stages or alive,
Mhm.
like really tapping into your authentic self. And that's the way you walk yourself through it. So, and you walk this through in the book beautifully, of course. I know one of the things we talked on a little bit in the previous episode is the one thing that gets in our way of really being seen or putting ourselves out there. And it's, of course, the four-letter word FEAR. And of course, there are multiple facets of how fear shows up and the symptoms of fear. And you talk about these specific ones. And I know we all experience it, such as perfectionism, perfectionism.
Yeah, you got it.
And
And I love how you said that because it wasn't perfect. That's perfect.
There
Keep
we
that
go.
in. Don't edit that
And
out.
and then imposter syndrome, like all these things creep in everybody's experience in life. None of us are absent of fear. And you touch on this big, but what can we do to help, lessen that fear? Because again, it's always going to be present so that we won't be afraid to put ourselves out there and take that next action towards our dreams. What would you suggest? Maybe if you want to touch on one of them, for example, I know a lot of people feel strongly, especially when they're going to pursue something new and big, they immediately have imposter syndrome. So
Mhm.
what can you say about that, and how can we be able to step past it or through it, maybe is a better way to put it?
I like that you said through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is really big right now. It's a very trendy word, and it's just a fancy schmancy word for fear, for being insecure or feeling like you don't have the self-esteem really in that moment to be able to step into that thing, and that's totally normal. If you're doing something new, you've never done it before, of course you're gonna be scared. Of course you're gonna feel a little bit of fear, and I love talking to people that are more successful than me and asking them this question. My favorite question to ask is like, "Does fear ever go away?" And I'm waiting for someone to tell me that it does, and nobody has told me that it does. Every single person, no matter how successful, they always say to me like, "No, it never goes away." Whenever you're taking a new step, a step in the unknown territory to something you've never done before, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, comparison, all that stuff, it comes. But the more successful you become, the more you do it, the more practice you have facing it, the better you get at doing things with fear there anyway. So in the book, and on stages and whenever I have conversations, I don't ever want anyone to become fearless. I think that that would actually hinder us to get rid of fear because fear can actually be a great tool. And one of my favorite quotes is fear is like fire. If you can learn to use it, you can let it work for you because it can actually point you in the right direction. Fear can be really powerful. So I don't want to become fearless. I just want to become more courageous. I want to get better at doing things with fear there anyway. So I like to just acknowledge imposter syndrome. It's there all the time. I mean, oh my gosh, I don't know if there's a day that I don't feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. I talk a lot about my husband, Chris, his concept of 51% in the book. And I think the personal development space can sometimes make us feel, and I'm not going to say everybody, but some content can make you feel like, man, I need to believe 100% in myself. I need to feel this 100% of the time. And that just doesn't feel good to me because I don't know if I'm ever believing that I can do something 100% ever. I think that maybe sometimes I'm at 98%, sometimes I'm at 90%, but I don't know if I'm
Right.
ever at 100. And in order to take action, you don't need to be at 100. You don't even need to be at 90. I feel that you really only need to be at like 51% of belief, a little bit more than you don't. Because that little bit more than you don't, like that 51% of belief, 51% I can do this, even though fear is there, that'll get me if I could get me to that first action step. And that first action step, if I go through it with fear there anyway, that'll give me that little bit of win, that little bit of confidence that will move me to the next step or a little bit more of belief. That'll create a little bit more momentum and a little bit more confidence. And that's how it works. In the book, it's known as the confidence continuum. That's how it
Yeah.
works. Action to the little win. Oh my God, you got the win. You got a little bit of motivation. Then you take action again. Then you get the big win. Oh my gosh. Then you got a little bit more confidence. And then you create momentum. And then you've got this beautiful circle. And the fear doesn't go away. You just get better at taking action scared. And so in the book, there is a chapter called This Little List Will Change Your Life.
Mm.
And that is my answer to imposter syndrome. It's my favorite tool that I use on the regular. It's called the badass list. And whenever you're feeling like an imposter, and this is for the listener, if you just like, how do I move through this? Like fear is yelling at me, it's screaming at me, it's telling me I'm an imposter, it's telling me I can't do this. I'm so scared. How do I take action anyway? This tool is helpful. So I want you to make a list of all of the times in your life when you felt like a badass. And it could be a business thing, it could be a life thing, it could be an internal thing that nobody knows about. Any moment where you felt amazing, like when you launched this podcast, maybe like where whoever's listening, you ran a marathon, you met the love of your life, you gave birth to a human, you overcame an illness, you helped somebody in need, you started your side hustle and made one sale. Holy crap. You pressed play on this podcast today when you didn't feel like it. Badass. Badass. Write them down. It's a rolling list. You'll always be adding to it. But I feel like the main reason that we get very stuck in imposter syndrome is we're spending a lot of time looking at other people and thinking how great they are and that we're not worthy, that we're not as good because we're scrolling and we're comparing. So what if you read your list out loud and you read it as if it was somebody else that you were FOMOing over or you were comparing yourself to and you were just looking at them on the internet? And what if you just allowed yourself to be maybe a little bit jealous of that person or impressed by that person? And then you take a beat and you say, "Oh, wait a second. That person's me." Would I say that that person is an imposter? That they're not worthy of doing the thing I'm afraid to do? Or would I be pretty damn impressed with that person and I would tell that person, "You should go for it." It's been an unbelievably powerful tool for me, and I hope that anybody that's listening that has imposter syndrome, which I would say probably 100% of the people listening in some way, shape, or form have felt
Yes.
that once in their life at least. Um, Try to use that tool. It might help.
I love that so much because I think so many times we minimize our accomplishments and we don't celebrate our small wins. Like, I think celebrating our small wins is so powerful because, as you talk about, and I think confidence is one thing. I think a lot of people will see you on social media and there is confident Jen there. Like, you shine bright, but you're owning it and you are like, it's not a facade, it's real. You've embodied this, you've practiced it, you've built up the actions to prove to yourself that I'm worth it to be seen, per se. We all are worth it to be seen, but I love how you talk about the badass list because I think so many of us minimize what we've done and we don't acknowledge. And our friends, like friends that actually care about us, they're able to see in clear as day what we've done and they're impressed by it. So if we could show it to ourselves by writing it down, even in probably the process of what writing it down, you could recall like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And it gives you that confidence to continue and take the next action. And like you said, it's a
Mm,
spiral loop, which I love that. I think confidence is, I love talking about confidence because it really is in the action that we build confidence. It's not something that you just like one day show up, I have confidence, or put on a dress and I'm confident. Yes, that's one thing, but it's something that you like keeping your word to yourself. That is one of the, I believe, the key ways to build your confidence is being accountable to yourself and others. But I think that's so key. And I love for any of those imposters out there that you feel you're an imposter. I love the badass list. And again, she walks it through in her book very thoroughly. So let's talk about so more into being seen. Of course, we want to be an authority in, the message that we share out to the world, who we're helping. And a lot of people think of social media as like, okay, that's we have to be on social media because that's just the way the world has shifted. But some people are still afraid of it. And I think some people don't want to share their whole selves on social media and they feel the pressure to do so. So what would you say about this? Because I think it's important for people to maybe have a different perspective on sharing their
yeah.
message or be seen on social media.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much nuance in this because I can't speak to absolutely everyone because there are situations and people out there that if you're self aware enough to know that you don't want to be seen and you don't want to be out there, then that's a okay, and that's okay, and you don't have to. But I'm speaking right now to the person that has a service, a story, or a product that can help people and they have a desire. They know they've been given this gift. They know in their heart, man, they see other people maybe out there talking about what they talk about or have a story and they're helping people and they're like, that should be me. I should be doing that. And they feel a calling. Those people, if that's you, then I'm speaking to you right now. If you have a service, a story, or a product that can help people, and it is on your heart to share that with people and use it to impact people, to help people, and not just impact other people, but also impact your life and build a business for you and your family, then it's your responsibility to be seen. Because if you're not being seen and putting yourself out there and allowing those people that could hire you or learn from you or follow you and be inspired by you, then they're going to go follow someone else. They're going to go pay someone else. They're going to go listen to someone else that's not as good as you, doesn't care as much as you, simply because that person is over themselves and can put themselves out there and isn't hiding. And that's a shame. It's your responsibility really to be seen. It's not about you. And I think that a big reason, and it's understandable. I feel this. I've felt this so much in my life. And the only reason I can talk about this is because I was there. And I still struggle with it sometimes. Like not wanting to post or not wanting to go live or not wanting to put something out there because it's not perfect or I'm worried about what someone's going to think or what someone's going to say or what do I look like or what do I sound like or if the information that I'm giving is good enough. But the problem with that is that That's all about me. And if we can flip it around and stop worrying about us and start thinking about the real reason why you're creating content, which is for someone else, and think about them. In the book, we say hope, the hope acronym. Just got to have a little hope. Help one person every day. Think about that person on the other side. So we're thinking about the person that's listening to this podcast. I'm thinking about that person right now. I'm thinking about you and I'm talking to you. And when you talk to the person on the other side of the content, you're not thinking about you anymore. Because if you were at lunch with a friend and they were crying and they were upset about something and you were just trying to pour into them and make them feel better, you wouldn't be worried if you sounded okay or looked okay. You would be so concerned about just getting your point across and you wouldn't be nervous. So focusing on providing value and giving to the other person will remove the ego. It'll remove a lot of the fear. Not all of it, but it'll remove a lot of it and it'll help you to take that first step, which will then build more confidence over time.
I love it. I love it. I think that's such an important message because I think all of us need a little bit more of a nudge to really step into being seen for what the message that we feel powerfully on our heart to share, especially like you said, if you're providing a service, teaching, coaching, or whatnot, or you're an entrepreneur in some type of field. So I think that's so important. What can you, because I know the second half of your book, as like I said, I'm still reading through it, but I know the second half of your book, you talk about the strategies and the tactical ways to show up as an authority and to be seen, powerfully in the message that you're trying to serve. What would be like one thing you would like to pull out of the book that possibly could help somebody maybe start today to take those steps in creating kind of a game plan of being seen, of course, as their authentic self on social media or on a platform or whatnot? What would you recommend first to start with?
Well, there's so many tactical tools in there. There's tons of them. There's 10 laws of content creation. There's the simple structure story framework or there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
But it would be irresponsible for me to talk about those if I don't talk about just starting, because this is the main problem. I
Yes.
talk to a lot of people about this every single day. And like all the information, you've got it. If you've got Be Seen right now, if you order it, you're going to have the information. If you follow me on social, you have the information. Like a lot of the information you can get on podcasts, you can find the information. But if you're not doing it, well, then it's simply because you are afraid to be a beginner. And that's okay. We're all afraid to be a beginner. I know that I am. My therapist says to me all the time, whenever I'm like stressing out about my book, this is your first book. What is your relationship with being a beginner? Have
Mm-hmm.
you written a book before? No. Then how would you know how to do a perfect book launch? Well, I wouldn't. So you just got to get started in order to learn. With social media and posting and building a brand, the biggest thing that holds us back is we're afraid to start because we're afraid that it's not going to be perfect the first post. We're afraid that no one's going to follow us the first moment. We're afraid that we're not going to get the engagement on the first try. That is like that. Would you make fun of or laugh at or think down on someone that was just like they're 5 years old and they were going swimming for the first time and they tried and they failed and they were afraid and they were failed? No, you'd be cheering them on. You'd be
Yeah.
excited for them because you know that they have to take those strokes. They've got to start. They've got to do it messy. They've got to get their head under the water first and do it all not so good in order to succeed. We need to be willing to be a beginner. And that's why I started doing these Instagram lives. I'll never forget the moment that this really, really got to me about being a beginner and starting before I'm ready.
Tell us about. I
I live
wanted
right
to
down.
hear this story. Yeah.
Yeah, this story's not in the book, I don't think. No, the
I
story's not in
don't
the book.
think
I talk about the
so.
story a lot. That's why I'm like, is it in the book? But I don't think it is. This is an extra story for you guys. So I live down the street from this little comedy club. It's like a 15-seat theater where sometimes big comedians will stop by when they're in town. And my friend owns it. And so one day, like a couple years ago, my friend calls me and he's like, Jen, Jerry Seinfeld's going to be at the theater tonight. You got to get here. I'm like, Jerry Seinfeld? Wow, that's big. That's amazing. Okay, I will get dressed for Jerry Seinfeld. So we get dressed and I run down the street. We go to this comedy club to see Jerry, one of the highest paid comedians in the world, best comedians in the world, right? Sit down in this little tiny theater and he starts going and Jerry is bombing the show.
Mm,
Like
really?
no one's laughing. I'm like uncomfortable. Like I'm like, what is happening right now? And then all of a sudden, Jerry pulls out this note card and he starts reading his jokes off of a note card.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh my God, Jerry is working out his material.
mm,
Jerry is allowing himself to start before he's ready to learn what works, what doesn't. He's working it out. He's figuring it out. He's willing to kind of suck in front of people in order to figure out what works and what doesn't. And several years later, he did his Netflix special at the Beacon Theater 4 blocks away, where all of those jokes that really sucked crushed. And I was like, you got to start even the best of the best of the best. When they get the best, they practice more. They allow themselves to screw up a little bit more in the practice rounds in order to figure out how to be better. That's where a big part of these Instagram lives came from. I'd go live now every single day with the cow headband on my head and no makeup on my face. That's scary, but I do it. Why? I do that to practice answering questions, to practice speaking, to practice being in front of an audience every single day, to practice my material, even though it's bad, to figure out
Amazing.
what people like. What do they like? What questions are they asking me? What do they want to hear about? Talk about content creation. You don't have to figure anything out if you just ask people what they want to know about. And every day they're telling me what they want to know. And so my keynote speeches that I do internationally in front of huge stages were built in my Instagram lives while I put my makeup on.
That's remarkable.
You got to be willing to be a beginner.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was scrolling through Facebook this morning before this interview, and I saw one of your reels that popped up, and it was that like start before you're ready, and that it's not about being perfect; it's just beginning. And that's how you kicked off what you were sharing in that message. And it's so true that I think so many of us think we need to be like, okay, we've reached this ready point, and now we begin. And I think that's so false. It's like you get more ready as you are in the process of action. And I think you speak a lot about a law of attraction, and I know that's one of the things that you speak heavily on. It's not about just manifesting all the things, even though you're great at manifesting everything that you've manifested in your life, but it's the action you took towards that manifestation. And I would love if you could kind of touch on that, because I think action is a big piece that is missing here, because again, people delay starting and taking actions because they're yet to feel ready.
Yeah. I couldn't write this book without having a whole section called The Law of Action. It's a
Mm.
whole section on action. I love manifesting, the law of attraction. I love it. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Yes, I've manifested things. But when I look back at the stuff that I manifested, and I tell the stories on stages and in the book of manifesting things, including my husband and the role in The Wedding Singer and all the other things, the book, everything that I've created in my life, and even having conversations with other people or my clients, people in my mastermind that have manifested stuff, and we take it apart. It was never, I dreamt about it and put it on a vision board and it magically appeared. Ever. That's not how it happens. I wish it did. And maybe there's someone listening that was like, Jen, I put something on a vision board and then it arrived at my stoop. That's amazing. Congratulations. I think that's really cool, but that is an outlier. And I believe that the law of attraction nowadays is kind of getting a bad rap. And that's because people are teaching it in a way of it's like you visualize it and it magically appears. I believe that when I look back at all of my experiences and the people that I know of their experiences with manifesting, it's not about it magically coming to you. It's about tricking your subconscious. It's about reprogramming your beliefs. It's about visualizing the thing that you want as if it's yours and creating a memory, a false memory that actually feels really real to your subconscious so that you believe that that thing is yours. So that when you go to take action to get that thing, the fear is less. The opportunities are more prevalent. And that's why there's a neon sign on the cover of my book, because it's like there's neon signs pointing you right in the direction of everything that you want. You just got to step into it. And when you've done the reprogramming and when you've done the visualizing and you've got the vision board and you've got the pictures all over your house and you're thinking about it all day and you're like, this is mine. This is for me. I know this is mine. I'm so grateful for it. It makes the action steps easier. In the book, I talk about dare of the day. That dares of the day changed my life. Giving myself a dare every day to do something a little scary outside of my comfort zone and just take action and just do something. It's always the doing that kickstarts the momentum, that opens up the door, that creates the relationship, that leads you towards the opportunity. It's never sitting at home on your couch. Unless you're sitting at home on your couch and you're building your online business and that's your action taking. But usually it's not sitting at home on your couch.
Yeah, I love, and your podcast is called I Dare You. And I love that is actually, how could you challenge yourself, or how could you, like you say, dare yourself to do something that's scary, but if you did it, you would move closer to your goal. Like, what simple thing can you do? And I think that the point is, what simple little thing can you do?
Yep.
I don't think it's some people I know have this, like, I have to do this big thing. And I think it's really in the small things that add up over time and consistently do that add up to the big things. So I love that you talk about that. I think you walk through this book of the actions you took towards your goals. And I think it's really empowering when you listen to these stories or read through these stories that you could see yourself in them and maybe look at what you're trying to achieve and how could you take a little action. And it could be as simple as writing down a list, your badass list. It could be as
Mhm.
simple as putting an affirmation on your mirror that you could read every single day and give you the strength to maybe go to the gym, go to do this or whatnot. I know one thing people hate so much is failure and rejection. And you talk about this too. How can we develop a better relationship with being able to like face rejection, like being willing, again, taking these little steps and maybe, yes, you might not succeed the first time, but being willing to do it kind of scared or just to develop kind of a better relationship with rejection. Because how have
Mm.
you been able to develop that muscle in yourself?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, I know without a shadow of a doubt, whoever's listening, if you're going to be on a journey of always stretching and growing and trying new things and putting yourself out there, you're going to get rejected. You're going to hear no. My whole early career as an actress taught me so much about this because my whole job was learning how to turn no's into yeses. Like I basically just got rejected every day, like 10 times a day. Like, that was it. You're not good enough. No, 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 no. And I got really good at just accepting that that was a part of life and understanding and knowing that, well, okay, this no just means that there is a yes somewhere else because there is actually like the law of polarity will say that for every like up there is a down, left there is a right, black there is a white. For every no, somewhere there is a yes, and it might not be immediate. But when you say no to something, you open up space for something else to come into your life. And when you connect the dots looking backwards, it always makes sense. So the way that I deal with rejection now, it's not in the book because I recently started doing this, but it's been such a game changer for me. Is I get rejected a lot. I'm trying to be a keynote
You're
speaker and speak
stretching. Yeah.
internationally on big stages, and I'm getting heard no. Getting heard a lot of yeses, a lot of yeses, it's amazing, but I'm also getting just as many, if not more nos. And so, I like to make friends with rejection. In the book, we talk about making friends with it because when you make friends with it, just like fear, and you put your arm around it, you can take away its power that it has over you. And so, I screenshot all of my rejection emails. Whenever I get a no or a text, screenshot it, and I have a rejection email album in my phone. And all of my rejection emails go in the rejection album. And I regularly look at it and I show it to people and I embrace these rejections and I laugh at them and I look at them and I read them and I make jokes about them. And I'm like, I'll read it and I'll be like, you don't want me today, but next year you will. And I'm going to be more money,
I love it.
Or when I
Yeah.
get a yes, I go back to my album and I look at all the no's and I'm like, oh, if I would have gotten this one, then I wouldn't have been able to get that one. And it helps me to connect the dots and it helps me to just make light of it. And sometimes I'll share them with my friends or with Chris and I'll be like, look, I got to know. And it's like, yes, I got to know because that means if I'm getting no's, it means I'm doing something right. It means that I'm trying to get a yes. Because if you're not getting no's, then you're not trying to get a yes. And that's how I deal with it now. And
I love
there's
it.
a whole system in the book on how to deal with rejection and how to actually turn the no into a yes. And a lot of big no's that I've gotten and how I've redirected myself from that rejection. But it's such an important question. I'm so glad that you asked it. And I like this rejection album situation. It's really helping me. So it's not in the book, but I would advise that you try it and then DM me and let me know how it goes. It's a new thing for me, but I'm loving it.
I love it. I love it. Like, it's a good way to switch your perspective on things. Like you said, if
Mhm.
because I didn't get this, I got this instead. And it's kind of like, I love that. It's a great thing to try. Give it a try. So I want to get to know you a little bit more. Let's put your book aside for now. Everybody go grab
Yeah.
it. It'll be in the show notes. But I just want to know, what is your non-negotiables that you do in your day? And what well, first let's ask that. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have many. I used to have a lot of really strict non-negotiables. I used to have a morning routine that no matter what, I did the exact same thing every single day. And It worked for me then. That was a time in my life where every single day looked pretty much the same, and there weren't a lot of, other variables in my life that there are now. I was single, I lived alone, I had the same job where I went to the same place, like, I had my clients that I went to every single day. So I was able to have a morning routine that looked the same every day, and the reason that I share about this is because I think that many people are very obsessed with finding, like, the perfect morning routine, the one that works the best for everyone, and I've learned over time that there is not one morning routine that works the best for everyone, and
Right.
there is not one morning routine that's going to work the best for you for the rest of your life, or at least that's what I've found. I found that the more that I shift and change and grow, the different things that I need to do, the only non-negotiable for me is that I do something. That I do something that gets me into peak state, that sets me up for a day. So I take some time and I will usually plan that the night before. So I will look at my calendar the night before and I'll say, what are 3 commitments that you're sticking to tomorrow? No matter what. 3 commitments. And it could be a commitment that's kind of scary, but it could also be a commitment that I know is easy for me to do. But the act of sticking to the commitment and being able to actually revisit that at night and say, did I do it? When my head hits the pillow, did I do it? Did I stick to my commitments? Yes, that makes me feel good. And that puts another coin in my confidence bank for the next day. I'm the type of person that sticks to my commitments. So usually, well, one non-negotiable, the only one that I have is that I move my body no matter what.
I
Whether
was
that's
gonna say, I
lifting
have a
weights,
feeling that's what
that's it. That's it.
Mm,
That's the only one. Go for a
yeah.
walk. It doesn't have to be a crazy hard workout. Most of the time it is because that's me, and I love that, and that always makes me feel good. I have never worked out and felt like shit afterwards unless I hurt myself or something, but either way, you feel good that you worked out, and it's the best way for me to stick to my a commitment for myself in the morning, and I practice doing something hard and uncomfortable and pushing myself past my limits, and that sets me up for the day to prove to myself that whenever something hard comes around, I can stick to it, and I can move past it, and I can sit in that discomfort. Because as much as I'm working out my body, I'm also working out my mind and training my mind to be able to really go through that discomfort and move through that difficult time and understand that discomfort's temporary and that no matter what, you end up on the mat at the end. And you're looking up at the ceiling. This is my favorite thing. When I'm done with my workout, I always lay on the mat and I look up at the ceiling and I think I always end up on the mat again. No matter how
Mhm.
hard the workout was, no matter how difficult the conversation was I had to have this morning, no matter how scared I was to do the keynote yesterday, no matter how nervous I was about whatever had to happen, I always end up here. How do I want to feel when I end up here tomorrow? Do I want to feel proud of myself or do I want to feel like I could have done better? Time doesn't stop. That's why I have time tattooed on my wrist
Mm.
because it keeps going no matter what. We always end up on the mat. We always end up in our bed. Tonight, you're going to end up in your bed and you're going to be like, I want you to ask yourself, like, how did I do? I ended up here. Here I am, no matter how hard the day is. No matter how
Yeah.
overwhelmed you feel, no matter how painful it is, no matter how tough it is, this too shall pass. And that is my one non-negotiable. That concept, whatever it looks like.
Love that.
There's also, gratitude list, texting my husband, all that stuff. It's great. Really, it's that reminder. I can move through discomfort. And that usually starts with movement.
Love that. Okay, the other question, just to kind of wrap this up, is if you were to create just 5 things on your joy list joy list meaning what brings you joy, what would be those 5 things?
5. Okay. Probably not what you think. Um, my so exercise,
Yep.
number 1. And I will separate these 2. Walking. So I
Mm.
love my favorite thing is to just put my headphones in and walk around New York City.
Walking
I
is
will
the
walk
best thing ever.
ever, ever, ever. I will walk for hours. My husband and I go on walks. I walk my dogs. I walk by myself. I just my favorite. So lifting weights, exercise, walking. Um, my husband, my dogs. So there's 4. My stepdaughter. Oh, that's 5. So I guess that could be family, but also like I really, really love like just watching. This is so weird. So I want to give you a weird one, just so you know that like
Yeah.
I'm like totally like not completely like personal development obsessed and give you perfect answers. I don't cook and I don't bake and I eat super clean, so I don't even really eat bad stuff. But
Mhm.
I love watching baking shows. I don't know why, but it brings me so much joy, like baking competitions. I will just like sit on my couch with my iPad at the end of the day or with my computer and just like, all right, I did the best day ever. I laid it all out in the field. I squeezed all the juice out of the lemon. I am exhausted. I want to watch people bake.
That's
Let's go. And that just brings me so much joy.
That's amazing. I love it. You know what? I think a lot of people feel that way when they watch baking shows, but that's so funny that you don't bake or anything. But I think I feel the same way when I watch those shows. It's just intriguing to see what they're able to create. And I don't know, something about it. But I love that. Thank you for sharing that. makes me happy to hear just a piece of you in this interview. But of course, there's so much more to learn about you. Well, let's just close this off as I asked you last time, but I'm always, again, we're always evolving. So I love to hear people's new answer when I have them on the second time. If you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned along your vast journey, and you just feel it's something you need to shout out to the world today, what would that be and why?
Yeah. I was trying to think of what I said to you last time.
I don't
I
remember
definitely
either.
know I didn't say this one to you this time. So I already said it, but I'm going to say it again because this has been my constant reminder. This too shall pass. The good moments, they're temporary. The bad moments, they're temporary too. It's how you move through them, and when you get to the other side, that you experience that growth and that evolution of who you are. So if you're in it right now, or you're in it for a few minutes, or you're pushing yourself past your limits, know that it's not forever. It will pass. And how do you want to feel on the other side? And that's the question I'm always asking myself, and that's what's always driving me.
Mm, that's mindfulness right there. That's mindfulness, I believe, is really being able to really check in and know that this moment will pass, good, bad, and to really check in, like, how do I want to show up despite whatever this moment means at this present moment, or what does it feel like? Actually, it's not even
Yeah.
what it means, really. So beautifully said. Thank you for that message. I think all of us need to hear that, honestly. So thank you for shouting that out to us.
Thank you for asking.
This has been such an honor, Jen. So absolutely appreciate you. And I'm just so excited to finish this book and for everybody to go grab it. Again, it will be linked in the show notes, available everywhere you could get a book. Be Seen, Find Your Voice, Build Your Brand, Live Your Dream by Jen Gottlieb. So thank you so much for everything. And any way we could support you, is there anything, can we do to support you more?
You're amazing. So thank you for this. I want to acknowledge you. I had just as much fun, if not more, for this interview than the first one. I love you. Yeah, just buy the book. Buy the book for a friend. Don't just buy it for you. Buy one for you and buy one for a friend so that you guys can read it together. Or even better, buy one for you and then donate one. Donate one to the library. Donate one to somebody that's in need. Donate to a charity that accepts books so that somebody that can't afford to get a book can have one too.
Awesome. So appreciate you. You're such a blessing, and you're so great to just like be in the energy with. You're so inspiring, and I'm so ecstatic to share this with everybody and just learn more about you. And just, I think you share so much on your social medias and on your stages, and I think there's just so much value to learn from you, and your authenticity and your light just shines right through. And I think just you're so relatable. And so I appreciate you for being seen and teaching us how to be seen as well. So thank you.
Thank you, friend. This was so fun. Made my day.